We will discuss the aftermath of this tragic chapter of the War of Independence with well-known Cahir historian Liam Roach, and we'll conclude with a few words from the chairperson of Cahir Social and Historical Society, PJ O'Mara. Firstly, Liam, when did the British authorities finally conclude that Gilbert Potter had been killed by the IRA, and what actions did they take?
Well, they were never optimistic about his safe return, because you had murders and ambushes every day of the week. And in fact, RIC report for that very week listed something like 7 or 8 murders, 6 robberies and 4 or 5 ambushes. And right down the end of that report, in fact, we were told that district inspector was missing and believed to be murdered. So it didn't look too good. But they were really sure, I think, when the letter arrived on 27th of April in Lily Potter's house in Wellington Street in Cahir. As for the actions they took afterwards, I think they were barbaric. They blew apart 18 houses in the West Tipperary area. That's 6 in Cahir, 6 in Tipperary district and 6 in Cashel district. It was a brutal thing to do. They smashed up all of these people's possessions beforehand, planted their explosives and just blew them apart.
Secondly, Liam, Gilbert Potter was finally buried with full military honours in Kilcommon Church of Ireland graveyard at the end of August 1921. Why did it take 4 months for this to happen?
Well, there were tough times. We were at war, and they couldn't just be seen strolling up the mountain to collect the body again, to dig up a body. They couldn't trust anyone. It's something they had to time and plan properly. And they were able to do that when the truce was signed, and the truce was signed on the 11th of July. And after that, they were able to arrange with Lily Potter, who went as a hostage with 3 unarmed men in a truck one dark night down on the eastern side of the Cummers, the Rathgormack side of the Cummers, and picked up her husband's body.
And Liam, what happened to the Potters after Gilbert's burial?
A tragic time for the family. They stayed with his uncle, who was the Anglican bishop in Waterford City. After some time there, they went by boat late at night to England, and they stayed in Tunbridge Wells in England. Unfortunately, poor Freddie took ill some months after their arriving, and he died in 1922 of whooping cough. His mother, Lily, died in 1926. Georgina, who had TB before that, was hit again with it and eventually died shortly after that. So 2 of the family survived.
And finally, Liam, you have one incredible story from 1940 that concerns both the Traynor and Potter families.
Yeah, this is a lovely story, an amazing story actually. World War II. Big battle up off the coast of Norway in a place called Narvik. Narvik was a great port. They all wanted to take charge of this port because it was free from ice most of the year, very accessible. And there was a massive battle there in April, and several destroyers were sunk on all sides, both sides, and who was in one of the destroyers that was sunk there was young Nicholas Potter. And he was in the water, as many others were, and who was also another ship there called HMS Diana, a D-class destroyer, a smaller destroyer, was Tom Traynor's son. So Tom Traynor's son was one of those men that got down into the boats released by the HMS Diana, and they rowed out into the bay, Narvik Bay, the dangerous waters, dangerous cold waters, with shells dropping all around them, the swell of the sea and the sinking ships. Terrible night, and they pulled the survivors into their boats and back to their ship. The next morning, the survivors were brought up on deck and introduced to those men that had saved them the night before. And it was on that trip back to England when Nicholas Potter would have met Tom Traynor's son. This is something that troubled him for some years, it seems, and because of that he came and he actually went to visit Dan Breen, of all people, in his nursing home in Dublin. And in fact his daughter told us, the Potter's granddaughter told us there some time ago, that he not only met Dan Breen, but in fact he met one of the Traynor family as well.
Thank you, Liam.
Thank you so much for your interest in A Life for a Life. We hope that the use of 21st century technology to tell this poignant story from the War of Independence has made this more engaging. Both Gilbert Potter and Thomas Traynor were family men on different sides of the conflict who were tragically in the wrong place at the wrong time. Cahir Social and Historical Society hopes to bring some of their descendants to Cahir later in the summer if circumstances allow. On behalf of the Society, I would like to thank everybody who contributed to the making of A Life for a Life. Most especially, I would like to thank Tipperary County Council and the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media for their funding of this project through the Tipperary Commemorations Programme. Thank you.